Yo. Hafide and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Guam Congress Building in Hagatna, and thank you all for being here. My name is Senator Dwayne Nicolas, and the Committee on Emergency Response, Border Safety, Military and Veterans Affairs, Mayor's Council of Guam is now called to order. The time is 0900. Today is Tuesday, January 30, 2024. In compliance with the Open Government Law, notice for the public hearing were published in the Guam Daily Post and the Government of Guam Public Notice Portal on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, and on Thursday, January 25th, 2024. Notices were also by email to all senators and all main media broadcast outlets, and this hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues here today, my esteemed colleague, Senator Telo Taidagui here. Good morning, ma'am. Senator Jesse Anderson-Lujan and Senator Amanda Shelton. Thank you all for being here. Please know that Bill number 180-37 Core and Bill number 168-37 Core were referred to the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, Culture, and the Committee on Environmental and Revenue and Taxation, Labor Procurement, and Statistics, Research and Planning. I, Senator Dwayne T.D. Nicolas, as a prime sponsor of Bill number 180-37 Core and 168-37 Core, will be holding the public hearing for these bills as permitted by Rule 6.01A1I of the 37th Guam Legislature Standing Rules. We will begin with 180-37, sponsored by myself and co-sponsored by Senators Telo Taidagui, William A. Parkinson, Joe San Augustine, Roy Kanata, Jesse Lujan, and Christopher M. Dwayne. An act to add a new subsection 40145 to Article 1, Chapter 40, Division 4, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the transfer of the Inalahan Pool Park from the Department of Parks and Recreation to the Office of the Mayor of Inalahan. If anyone has signed in, please join us at the panel, please. Mayor Chargloff, I'd like to acknowledge your presence, sir. Please come forward. And Director of the Department of Parks and Rec, Angel Sablan, I'm sorry. Good morning and welcome. Please introduce yourself and keep that mic close by so we can all hear you.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Chargloff, Mayor of Inalahan.
Manana Jesus, I'm Angel Sablan, the Acting Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Good morning.
All right, good morning, sir. Consigi, who wants to go first? Mayor Chargloff, you can go first, sir. You're first on the list.
I was hoping Angel goes first, so in case he doesn't support this, I'm going to go after him on my testimony. Anyhow, first of all, good morning. I appreciate all of you senators being here this morning, and more importantly, in support of this request. So yes, since I've taken over the Inalahan Pool, I've been the caretaker primarily. We've done all grounds maintenance, trash collection, even painting, and even doing some plumbing repairs. And so for me, this is as Mayor Ernest says, is a no-brainer. I have shown my commitment and the passion to maintain this place, but there are other plans that we have within our office on how we want to, maximize the use of the pool. The pool is a great opportunity where kids come together, and our plan is to, once we've acquired the pool as our asset, we're going to repurpose the pool. So in the evening, maybe once or twice a month, we're going to host a movie, and we're going to invite the villages of Umatak, Malesu, Talafofo, and of course the kids of Inalahan. What we envision there is, well, the kids come together and interact via a movie. The parents who probably have not seen each other in a while, it's a great way for them to reconnect to old relationships, because you know, those those villages I mentioned, we all went to the same middle school and all went to all the same high school. But it's been quite some time. So that's another way we want to do that. We also want to be able to foster entrepreneurship by allowing our Inalahan residents to partake in more or less like a night festival, right? Where they have movies, but they become vendors that are able to sell and showcase their delicacies. And so that again is to create a vibrant community, and I believe that this is a good way to start so the pool can become the staging, the platform for this whole process or the ideas that we have in how to best maximize the pool. So one of the things that we've wanted to do for quite some time is we wanted to do like maybe a botanical garden in the pool area, kind of create a more inviting atmosphere. But with every move that we were trying to do, I would constantly have to more or less beg for permission to go out there and do some stuff, right? And so, out of respect, I've slowly dwindled back in terms of trying to do any further upgrade until we get to this point of the potential, the possibility for it to be transferred over to our office. So with that said, just know that as the mayor of Inalahan, I'm committed to maintaining that pool, if not bettering it. I also know that when the transfer comes over, you know, we're really providing a relief for Parks and Recs in the sense that I understand the staffing shortage and what have you, but we stand prepared and ready to take over and, you know, do a lot of enhancement and making it more inviting for the people of Inalahan, people of Guam, and also our visiting tourists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Angel Saban, sir, go ahead. Take it away, sir.
Manana Jesus, I don't want to keep the good mayor of Inalahan in suspense. At the outset, I'll tell you I support the measure, and the administration supports the measure. In fact, even before I took my duties as the acting director of Parks and Recreation, and when Mayor found out that I was going to be appointed there, he pulled me to the side and says, hey, can we do something about the Inalahan pool, and can you give me jurisdiction of it? And I said, well, when I get in, we'll work on it. And well, we have a bill in front of us that does that. And when I first spoke with your communications director, Mr. Chair, the only concern I brought up was, I know Mayor Tony. He's probably one of the hardest working mayors and the more effective and vision-minded and focused. I mean, look at Inalahan now. You couldn't pass Inalahan without being in awe of what it has turned out to be from previous years. And my concern was, he takes this and he builds it all up, and I'm sure he has other plans than being the mayor forever. And so my concern was, what if the next mayor comes along and does not have the same vision or not the same passion as Mayor Tony? Does it then again become a burden to the Department of Parks and Recreation to keep up and maintain the pool and the park area? And of course, Mayor Tony assured us that whoever the next mayor is going to be, he better make the pool a priority, because he didn't build it up for somebody to tear it down. And so he has good plans. And as you know, my dear senators, we have over 60 parks on island that the Department of Parks and Recreation is responsible for. And we can't take care of them all at one time. We are wholly underfunded, understaffed, and we try to make do with what we have. In fact, many of our staff take funds out of their own pockets to be able to buy a hose bib, a shower head, a rake, a shovel, because the funding for us is not there. And I applaud the employees and the staff of the Department of Parks and Recreation for doing so. And I hope it doesn't end here, changing jurisdictions from the Department of Parks and Recreation to a mayor of the village. I've been with them for 15 years, so I know that many of the parks and even the recreational facilities, the mayors would love to take it over, to put programs and things like Mayor Tony has said into these parks and into these recreational facilities and make it more viable. And I'm sure Mayor Tony is not only doing this for the village of Inalahan. I'm sure he's doing it for the people of Guam. And I applaud him. And I applaud you, Mr. Chair, for coming up with this proposed bill. Now I don't have to worry about getting the Parks and Recreation Commission to come forward and give the jurisdiction to the mayor of Inalahan. There's only one thing, though, that I would ask to amend on this bill, and that's Section 40145. C. The Guam Department of Parks and Recreation shall allocate funds to the Office of the Mayor of Inalahan for the maintenance of Salaglula Pool Park, which is the Inalahan Park. As you know, in your preface to this bill, you've mentioned the lack of funding for the Department of Parks and Recreation. So you know that we are not in a position to be able to allocate any funding, even if it wasn't for just Inalahan, it's for all the parks. We really have to just split it up as much as we can, and just Ipaw and Matapang takes up the majority of the funding we have. And so I know that there's other ways that the Mayor of Inalahan can get funds, and we're giving the authority to charge the fees for the pavilions and also the permit for vendors that want to be there. I can't tell you how much in fees that park generates a year, because to the good heart of Mayor Tony, the people that come to his office and ask to reserve the park, through his concern, gives it to them, and the residents don't even come down to our office to reserve the pavilions at the Inalahan pool. But I would ask him that if the people of Inalahan and the people of Guam want to reserve the use of the pavilions that are available there, that he set up just like and mirror the user fee of the Department of Parks and Recreation, and so that he can start charging for the use of that. And it's reimbursable. You come in and you set up and you take your trash out, then you get your money back. There's only a deposit to ensure that whoever uses it takes out the mess that they bring in. And the other options he has, I'm sure that budget time is coming up. He can probably ask the Mayor's Council of Guam to include some funding for parks maintenance, and not just for the Inalahan pool, but you have the park in Jonia that is under the jurisdiction of the Mayor of Jonia, the Maleso Pier Park, which is under the jurisdiction of the Mayor of Maleso, and I'm going to also include the skate park and the dog park in Deredo, because after going through some of the jurisdictional issues with FEMA for the reimbursements of damages, we found out that it is actually in statute that the skate park in Deredo and the dog park in Deredo are under the jurisdiction of the Mayor of Deredo and not under the Department of Parks and Recreation. So simply said, I support, and I mentioned to you earlier that let this not be the end. Nimitz Park is another park that we're looking at for jurisdictional transfer to the mayor of Hagat. And if that can happen, I mean, if you can include it in here, and amend it, I'm sure. We are willing. We know our limitations, and we know the abilities of the mayors in the villages, and they certainly can do a whole lot better job of keeping it not just clean, but presentable to our people for their use. And so with that, he has our support. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you so much for your testimony. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Can I just add on, since Angel's indicating that they do need the help, I'm actually asking, can we go ahead and include the Surfside beach area? We've also maintained that area as well.
And how do you feel about that?
He's actually maintaining that park as well. And as long as it doesn't add additional burden to the Department of Parks and Recreation as far as allocating personnel and funding, then we don't have any objection to that either.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I will thank you very much for your testimony. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions by the panel. Senator Lujan, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morning, Mayor. Morning, Angel. How are you doing this morning? Mayor, I want to, kudos. You've done a tremendous job in INALÅHAN, Malolo area. My understanding is Skittles is about to contact you to do a Skittles festival over there as well, right? But no, congratulations. You've done a tremendous job. And even actually, even before you became mayor, there was issues. I remember doing radio, people calling in about the pool and not being open, and the store across the street was accommodating, people who wanted to use the bathroom and things of that nature. But let me ask you this, as Mr. Sablan was saying in regards to, again, funds would not be able to be transferred because they have no funds to be able to transfer. But do you have any plans again in revenue generation for the pool? Because I wouldn't mind a small entry fee, just to make, you got to maintain it.
Right.
And would it be sustainable without, again, some kind of entry fee or a fee to be able to, again, to maintain the park?
Yes. So the rental of the pavilions or what have you, that's kind of like the given. But so again, if you recall, I was saying earlier that if we did like a movie night at the pool for the kids, the vendors that we anticipate to draw in to be a part of this event would be, paying a fee, and it's through those fees and through whether it be vendor fees or user fees for the pavilion. That's kind of like what we intend to utilize as part of how we're going to use the fund to maintain. Right now, as it is, for the last 3 years, we've been the one maintaining the pool with zero, very minimal costs. And so, as far as the only thing that I'm going to be having to deal with the Mayor's Council is regarding the power and the water bill. That's kind of like the only other thing I anticipate that may hinder us from, operating 100%. But again, given the opportunity, if we were able to launch off and allow for the vendors to participate in like a night market, that is how I envision that we would be able to generate money enough to sustain and maintain the pool park.
Okay, you're talking about Surfside. So how many parks are there in Inalahan, Malolo area?
There's two.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's two. The only thing with the Surfside area is there is no pavilion right now.
Okay.
However, if you go down there today, my guys were building 2 small huts to be utilized for the people, but ultimately, if that's given to me, I will build a giant hut down there, ranging from about 25 to 30 feet tall. I want it to be, an icon, although the area is already iconic, I want this to be very scenic with the hut out down there. So again, I have a lot of plans, and there's maybe too much to tell at one breath, but I am very excited and passionate about wanting to really develop Inalahan. No longer is Inalahan going to be a drive-by. You're going to have to do a stopover and and spend some time there because of the investments that's going on that we're trying to do. And so, you know, I truly understand that the monies that are generated, primarily, a lot of them come from our visiting tourists. So that's why there's a lot of effort in my part to try to reinvigorate the tourist market, because I know that a lot of monies come from there. And again, to answer to the question, Senator, because right now we can't really think big because we don't have that. But if the visitors come, the tourists come, and the numbers start rising, obviously there'll be money, you know, to share amongst everybody, and we all should be happy campers. So again, that's the mindset, and I'm hoping that, you know, again, like I said, everybody approves of this. Just give it to me and just watch.
Is Surfside currently under Parks and Recreation?
Senator, yes, it is.
Well, okay. So you're all in favor of the transfer from Surfside, from Surfside being under the jurisdiction of Parks and Recreation to
Certainly,
Inalahan?
we are in favor, like I said, especially with the mayors in the villages.
Okay. Okay. You were saying also earlier there was the Nimitz Park or something down in Agate? Yeah, Agate. Yeah.
That's another big park that deserves attention.
Okay.
And much more than the Department of Parks and Recreation can provide. And the mayor of Hagat also has indicated to me that he is willing to take jurisdiction.
I know that the Guam Visitors Bureau also, what kind of agreement does the Guam Visitors Bureau have with Parks and Rec currently in some of the parks that they help maintain? I don't know if they're under your jurisdiction.
Currently, we have no agreement. Except for them to provide their VSOs, and you know, because the GVB office is right there in EPAL, they have a special interest in making sure that EPAL is always maintained. So Governor Crowell has already indicated that he wants to get into meetings with me and my staff to see whether we can come up with an MOU for EPAL and for Mathapang.
How many staff do you currently have, Angel?
For maintenance, just 4.
4?
Lucky that we have from the Department of Labor, there's this place worker program, that we have an additional amount of people, but they're only good for 6 months. And we have already requested to please continue and extend the 6 months for these individuals, because they're really certainly helping us. If it wasn't for them, and if it wasn't for the help that we're getting from the DOC, Public Works Program, and from the Department of Public Works itself, we really would be dead in the water.
Yeah. So, okay, so for the very limited amount of staff that you guys have, obviously you have to prioritize some parks over the others because they're more heavily...
Yes, in fact, we have a rotating schedule of where our men and one woman go on a daily basis for maintenance of the parks.
So are you suggesting then it's possibly time to look at possibly a lot of these parks to maybe now work closely with the different mayors of different villages to maybe have those parks and their municipalities transferred to them?
Transferred, or certainly work in partnership with us. I know that the Mayor Tony mentioned about utilities. I did give him a breakdown of the costs for the Inalahan pool. It's very minimal for the power and the water. And in fact, I see from the bill that it becomes effective upon enactment. And we do have the island-wide restroom facilities that are under contract, and that's good to September 30. So we can continue that for Inalahan pool until the end date of that contract, which is the end of this fiscal year.
The Park Patrol jurisdictions, are they based on their jurisdictional authority? Would they just then be for parks and recreational parks, that they would have jurisdiction over parks and recreation parks then?
That's the way the statute is now.
Okay.
And in fact, when we were meeting with GVB about how to provide more security and presence in Tumon, one of the issues that came up was the park police can only cite people within the parks or the recreation offices. So in other words, you have Matapang and you have Ipaw. If something happens in between
Between them,
Matapang
yeah.
and Ipaw,
Yeah.
all my people can do is call GPD and say,
Sure.
please come and
Yeah.
assist.
No, because
Yeah.
I was at that meeting as well, and I know I was speaking to General Moylan regarding looking at extending out jurisdictions over the park police. But also we were saying it wouldn't just be park police, it would be, again, other police entities in the government of Guam to holistically, be holistically have island-wide coverage. Because my concern is, as well here, is that, I'm all in favor of course, given the Inalahan mayor, the municipality, the Inalahan pool. But then now, the Park Patrol hasn't, they won't have jurisdiction over that park, right? Or if something happens over there, they won't. Right now, they currently patrol the park. They patrol that area, right?
Yes, they would. Even if the park is handed over to the mayor, they still would have jurisdiction as far as any criminal elements or things that they will still have jurisdiction because that's under
So
statute.
even if it was transferred over, they would still have jurisdiction?
Because if the mayor does not call the park police, he's going to call GPD anyway.
Yeah.
So, the jurisdictional matters as far as what our park police are authorized to do will still be in place for every park on the island.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Lujan. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge my other esteemed colleagues who decided to join us today. We have Senator Dwayne, Senator Fisher, and Senator Brown. Thank you for being here. Next person, I wanted to ask this question. Do mayors have the authority to arresting powers?
We have the authority to give a citation.
All right. How about we look into the possibility of calling you guys sheriffs instead? That way you guys also have that power to police your parks if we do come into that, but that's for another radio show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and continue with Senator Tello. Madam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to my colleagues, and of course, good morning to the esteemed gentleman sitting in front of us who's very active in the community, and I thank you for your service and your longtime service, Angel, that you provided wealth of knowledge on the mayor's side. It's very helpful to understand this, and of course, a mayor that I'm very proud of to say that I'm a daughter of Inalahan and doing a great job, and I hope you stay as long as Angel has in the government. Quite some time. You have to beat his record. But this legislation, as I co-sponsored, as the first co-sponsor of this legislation, anything to assist Inalahan, I'm for. And I want to make sure all the T's and I's are crossed too as well. But for the listening audience, this Bill 180 was actually referred to the Committee on Health, Land, and Justice. Unfortunately, it was not able to be heard, and the author of the legislation took advantage of the 120 days by having this public hearing. So I'm really quite interested in what the Committee on Health and Land has to say about this, this legislation, what the difference is. And I think one of them might be the fact that you're taking land away from the inventory of parks and recs. And the question is to you, Angel. I want to ensure that funding is not jeopardized to parks and recs for the maintenance and repair of facility bathrooms at the park. I know you've only been there for about a month, give or take. And by removing this out of your inventory, does it affect the amount of grants that you receive at Parks and Recs to address the repair of bathrooms and facility in parks and actually renovations as well?
Senator, to answer your question, no, it does
just
not.
speak right into the mic if you can pull it closer to you because this room is so bad.
To answer your question, no, it does not. Any grants that we apply for will be the whole island of Guam, including this pool. And so right now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a contract for the island-wide bathroom cleanup, and that's good until September 30. And even upon the enactment or the effective date of this legislation, we have already decided that we will continue that contract for Inalahan until the end of the fiscal year. Now, if we have to go and negotiate a new contract, if, like I said, this is a partnership. Although we are giving jurisdiction to Inalahan, adding on that restroom in Inalahan to the island-wide system, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in the contract. So
Have
we
you
will
thought
still
about
negotiate
an
that.
MOU instead of just a complete transfer into the property, where an MOU stays in place to ensure that Inalahan has total, decision-making and the ability to improve the facility or add on, or even like Senator Jesse Lujan mentioned, any way to generate funding. Would an MOU do the same thing and then do not jeopardize any kind of grants that you have? Because if you're doing a contract with an individual and you actually don't have jurisdiction of that area, that would be kind of, government-wise, I can see in the private sector, them getting away from it, but government-wise, I think you're going to have that under your jurisdiction, because I truly believe that the funding that's coming your way through grants should be still avail itself to Inalahan Pool and all that, because even though the mayor is amazing at his job and fixes up that place constantly on a daily basis, I don't want to lose any funding for Inalahan. That's my concern. I don't want to lose any funding that's going to Inalahan. So what do you think about an MOU versus a complete transfer?
Well, it'd certainly be up to this body. The thing with an MOU, you can always terminate it.
Yeah, but if
Whenever.
we do it by law,
But you do it by statute.
Yeah,
just
an
like we've
MOU.
done Malesu, just like we've done the other parks that we have transferred, like Jonia, it will really be up to the mayor. And as far as funding is when applying for grants, I mean, the gyms that are in different villages are under the jurisdiction of the mayors, but it doesn't stop us from applying to the DOI, which we are doing now, to repair those gyms and to maintain those gyms. And we are getting money for that, but despite the fact that they are under the jurisdiction of the mayor of that village. You see the Tamuning gym now, you saw the Aganya Heights gym that just had a ribbon cutting recently. Malesu is coming up. So it doesn't really affect who has jurisdiction of it, because it,
okay,
in the end, it's
go
an
back to that.
island-wide,
I just
yeah.
want to make that clear,
Okay.
Angel. So Tamuning, Aganya Heights, those gym facilities are transferred from Parks and Rec to the mayors?
No, they're not from Parks and Rec. They're under the jurisdiction of the village mayor.
Okay.
But I was just trying to make a point that even though they are under the mayors, the DOI grant,
Okay.
capital improvement grant, it does not cut it out because it's the Mooning's
Yeah, but
gym.
they're getting the grants under their own, office as the mayor under DI, or
No, it's one grant.
so they're getting it under Parks and Rec's grant.
Yeah, I sign off on the,
Okay. I just want to make sure that's clear. So there is no jeopardizing any more funding going to Inalahan, that you still can utilize funding under an area that you have no authority over. So this transfer is not going to jeopardize any more money to Inalahan, because it's the last thing I want to do.
No, it will not jeopardize Inalahan, and then certainly, in fact, it would help
Okay.
DPR be able to concentrate on other parks around there.
Okay, so I just want to make that clear, it doesn't happen, because I know Inalahan actually can do it even without any funding, but there's other, there's so much other improvement we can do to Inalahan. And the reason why I'm confident on this, for Inalahan to be able to handle any expenses for the pool, as well as Surfside. And this is the first I've heard of Surfside. is because they receive $150,000 a year from the host community grant, a bill that I introduced in the 30th that gives Inalahan, Orda Chalampago, yearly, on a yearly basis, $150,000. Unfortunately, I couldn't give it to all mayors, all villages, but because they host and hosted, the landfill, they justly, get this money through the tipping fees. And it may increase too, by the way, because the law allows them this 5% or every 5 years to reassess the inflation rate to increase it. So I have no doubt that the village can take on this additional cost. And so I was quite concerned, though, about the losing funding in other avenues. So that's not a problem, and I truly hope this mayor stays a mayor for quite some time, not just one more term, but for a long time coming. So an MOU funding. Angel, can you tell me, has the SHPO vetted any of this legislation, the SHPO? Because of course that's part of Parks and Rec, and Inalahan could be considered a historical significance and needs protecting as well to assist. What does the SHPO say about this?
Well, actually, SHPO, because this is just a transfer of jurisdiction, SHPO does not get involved. Unless, of course, Mayor Tony or any future mayor wants to build or construct something on that historical park, then he would have to go through SHPO.
Okay, so that still has to be vetted through the SHPO whenever any kind of building. Okay, that's good to know, so we got those mechanisms in place to ensure, because Inalahan Pool is considered a historical area and has some significance
and that
too.
pool area, Senator, is a previously disturbed area, meaning that the ground has been disturbed before, for the construction of the pavilions and the shelters that are there, even the construction of the pool itself. And so it won't have a difficult time going through SHPO, getting their approval, because they've gone through that process before.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And this surf site, I know that you've been taking care of that, and I have no problem with incorporating it into this legislation as well. I'll ask the author of this bill to also include it in the oversight chair. There was one section, I'm sorry, my last question, Mr. Chair, I promise. Angel, earlier you asked to eliminate section 2, letter C. Is that correct? The part where Guam Department of Parks and Rec shall allocate funds from the office of the mayor of Inalahan for the maintenance? Is that the section you want
Yes, simply because
out?
we have no funds to allocate.
Okay, so you just want to make sure that no funds are how about if we change shall to may? Because it says Guam Parks and Rec shall allocate funds. Okay, we know what shall means versus may, but what if happens?
Then I'll come back to the legislature and say, please appropriate some money that we can allocate to the Inalahan
Well,
pool.
in the event you get some money, in the event you come up with some funding that's given to you that you can take. So I'd like to actually keep that in there and just change shall to may, because in the event Parks and Recs does have some money to go to Inalahan, I'd like for you to be able to be very generous to a village that does so much to entice tourism, number one, and just bring the beautification of our island all in this one village, that everybody comes to and enjoys. So I'd hate to see any money that, not go in there if you have it.
That's certainly your prerogative, but I mentioned earlier that the park fees for the pavilion and the shelters, that would go to Inalahan upon enactment of this bill. They just mirror the user fees that we are using now for all the other parks. We won't get any of those funds. We fully understand that they need money for maintenance, so all the funds collected for the use of Inalahan Pool would go to the Inalahan Mayor's office. And you mentioned earlier the use of the host community fund, which Inalahan and Orda Chalampago gets. That host community fund has not been reassessed since you introduced that bill and became law. And I did mention last year that it's time to reassess to see whether or not that 5% increase is justifiable. And maybe, coming up on this budget bill for FY25, maybe that should be a provision put in there that it be reassessed. And if you increase the host community fund, maybe Mayor Tony has even more funds to use for the Inalahan pool and for Surfside. So there are different ways that we can ensure that this is a win-win situation, both for DPR and for Inalahan and for any park that we transfer jurisdiction to, because we're always thinking about the bottom line is funding. But I'm sure the mayor won't take it if he knows that he cannot afford it, and I'm sure we won't give it to them if we know they're going to fail. We're going to work together to make sure that whatever funding sources are there, we give to them.
Thank you, Angel, and I truly believe you're a man of your word, but when it comes to putting it in brass tacks and writing it down, I'd like to see it in legislation that does not hinder you, but also just adds to. So I would like, Mr. Chair, instead of striking it out, the shall become may. So in the event they do have funding, that the money is there. And as far as the host community bill, it would not be in this legislation. We have legislation already standing by that I've been working with both of the mayors to incorporate that. Unfortunately, the host community bill that I introduced requires that the PUC assess for inflationary costs every 5 years. However, it says may increase. So that's what we're working on right now. I mean, there was a slip up there. It should have been shall, after every 5 years. But unfortunately, it says may. So new legislation will come up to address it, not just for today, but in the future, every 5 years after that, as long as the dump is in Inalahan and as long as it's not closed in Ordat Chalampaco. So that being said, anything else?
Yeah, there's only one other recommendation as far as fees that we collect at DPR, and that's the vendor permits. And I know that there's vendors, one or two at the Inalahan pool, just vendors in different parks around the island. But because we already have the procedures at hand, we have what it takes to vet these vendors and make sure that they are fully licensed, their health, everything, so that when they do set up at a certain park, that they have the approval, not only of public health and revenue and tax, but also the Department of Parks and Recreation. And those fees are very minimal. So taking the fee and continue to maintain it at DPR is not going to make a dent into the amount of money that Inalahan will collect in the first place. It's a very minimal fee for a vendor. And we ask this because some vendors do not only stay in one park. They move around to different parks, or they set up at different parks. And we just want to make sure that all our vendors are fully vetted by DPR and that they are able to be there at that park to sell to the public or provide whatever it is that they want to do with the public. So that's only one area of the funding that we would like to keep at the Department of Parks and Recreation. And I'm sure that the mayor will not object to that because it's only one time a year and it's very minimal.
Okay, thank you, Angel. Thank you, Mayor, and please continue the good work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam. I'd like to recognize the presence of Senator Kinata, who joins us here this morning. And up next is Senator Amanda Shelton. Ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hafaday and good morning, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your testimony. Director Angel, I want to, of course, commend you, Mayor, for taking the responsibility for your leadership and your stewardship of the Inalahan pools. We were very impressed when we came for the ribbon cutting of the facility, and we were excited when we were there to break ground. And we knew at that point that Lieutenant Governor Tenorio said that it was the intention of the administration to transfer that property, that they supported the transfer from the Department of Parks and Recreation to the Inalahan Mayor. I know that Senator Nicolas asked me to be a co-sponsor of this legislation, and I said, hold on until we officially hear the position of the Department of Parks and Recreation. And at that time, we were going through a transition, so I'm glad to see Director Angel here today to give this testimony that the department and the administration is in full support of this transfer. And so I, of course, will give my support to this bill as well. Director Angel, your concern was my concern as well, knowing the situation that the Department of Parks and Recreation has been in for the last several years, not having enough funding to take care of the many parks under your jurisdiction. So I'm glad to hear that you'd also like letter C of this section to be taken out. I support that amendment to the bill. And I also have the same concern of you, Mr. Director, of how our park police will handle incidences at this facility now, how we can better support them. We've introduced legislation in the past to amend some of the authority of the park police, and if that's necessary going forward, I'd like to work on that, of course, with Mr. Chair here, who has a passion for this park, and for us to allow the park police, seeing that it's really becoming this, I would say, impressive, coming together after our first cycle, to allow them the jurisdiction to protect all the parks. And so I look forward to that. And I know that my good friend here, my vice chair, gave the suggestion of maybe a fee of entering the pools. And I hope that will be your last case scenario. I think if it's fees for vendors, if it's fees for events, if it's fees for a party, or to use the facility on a larger scale, but not to charge our people a fee to enter the pool when they want to go for a Saturday swim or something. So I hope that will be our last consideration for revenue generation. Okay? And that's it. You have my support. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam. Up next, Senator Fisher. Please, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. I don't have any trouble at all supporting this. I visit Inalahan frequently. I live down south, and I've seen the work you've done. The village is pristine. There's so much village pride down there. You know, everybody's yard is just immaculate. And it's just a wonderful place. And so I don't have any trouble supporting this because I know you'll do a terrific job. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that was quick. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. And up next, we have Senator Chris Dwayne, sir. Please.
Mr. Chairman, and I certainly support this Bill 18037, and I thank you for offering me to be a co-sponsor. Good morning to Mayor Tony Chargaloff and also Angel Sablan Mañao. Welcome to the legislature once again. You know, we always enjoy the opportunity to express our appreciation for everything that you continue to do and have done, Mayor, basically in Paradise Village in Inalahan. I wanted to share a story with you. One of your constituents that's been living in Washington State for many, many years recently returned, Eduardo Dwayne. He's my first cousin. And the Perez family was kind enough to allow us to have a picnic at Nomya. And so we were down at Nomya, and my primo said, man, I haven't been back in so long to Guam and my children. Of all the things that we've done, this has been the most wonderful experience, not just to enjoy the beach, but because he said, man, this village is just so beautiful and so well kept. So I wanted to just share that with you, that it's not just our tourists, but even our returning families who come to see Guam again when they've been away for a while. And this is the son of Eddie Dueñas that perished with Pali Dueñas. So he was just so happy to be down there, and we had a wonderful gathering and reminiscing about days of old, but also the compliments for everything that you've done. Mr. Chairman, it sounds as though there's preparation for whatever needs to be marked up in the bill with what testimony has come forward today. So I have utmost confidence that you and your committee will, perform that work going forward. So I don't have any troubles with the bill and the simple reading of it. And once again, in closing, Mayor, and also to Mr. Sablan, it's not often that we see public officials coming forward that have a lot of responsibility, saying, "Give me more responsibility." And so I want to admire you once again for that. And obviously, the reason why I believe that it's so important to support efforts like this is because obviously, as many of us have to do going forward, taking ownership of something, is really what it's all about. When you have ownership of something and you have commitment and you asked for it, it stands to reason that there's going to be that extra effort. And I'm sure beyond your service and the many councils that will come forward after you decide that you want to do something else, I'm sure that will be a living testament to the commitment that you came forward and said, give me jurisdiction of that location. I want it, and I want to take care of it as I have and perpetually. So I certainly want to encourage anytime, a public official who serves the people comes forward and says, give me that job, I want to do it. And so I'm going to give it to you, at least the power that I have of one vote. But thank you once again, like I said, for your stewardship. Thank you for being an example. I know that in many different, especially one very popular talk show, the host always talks about if every village can be like Inalahan, would just be in wonderful shape. So all of us will continue to try to do what we can, but thank you once again, as I said, for your responsibility and your stewardship, and we'll continue to work to support you in that endeavor with what needs to and be required for it. As far as Surfside is concerned, like I said, as you've seen before here, Angel, I'm sure that what we'll end up with here is a lot description. And so we'll work with the committee chair to work with land management and others to ensure that what will be attached in the final version will be a lot description. So there'll be no questions in terms of what your jurisdiction is. And I'm sure once it's filed, then you can keep that as a copy in your office, and there will be no question in terms of what your jurisdiction will be going forward should this become law. I hope it does, but you certainly have my vote and my support. So do masi, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to Senator Brown, madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to talk story too, like Senator Tello and Senator Dwayne is, because we're all trying to find how we're connected to INALOHAN, and I recently found out, because I was down there a couple of weeks ago with my mom and her older sister who's 88, and I knew we had relatives in INALOHAN, but I never knew truly what our connection was to the village because my grandmother passed away and my mom was very young, so I have a lot of orientation with my grandfather's side, but very little with my grandmother's side, and so we went down there because she wanted us to know where we had family property. And I ended up finding out that my grandmother and my great-grandparents actually had a home just a few lots down the road from Tello, across from the Baptist church next to the softball field. And so my great-grandparents' house was there. And I thought, oh, what a connection. I had no idea. And so now I know I have some blood running through my veins that's connected, Mayor Chargaloff, to your village, which was a very good, enlightening thing to learn. So I knew there was some connection somewhere, and finally I got to find out. So I will never pass that area again and not think about the fact that I have some roots in the southern village of Inalahan. But thank you so much for all that you do. I don't think it's any effort at all to support this bill. As I've mentioned before, you've done such an exceptional job with your village, and I know your heart is in all that you do. And I know that you contributed so much of yourself even prior to becoming the mayor. So the fact that you got elected was no surprise because you really spent a lot of your time, your effort, your money, your sweat in investing into your village. And we've seen the results, and we're all impressed with it. And, Senator Dwayne just mentioned a family member of his was down there recently from off island. And had the very same impression. So we certainly commend all that you do, and I don't doubt that you will do an exceptional job of continuing to take care of the pool. You've made every effort to ensure that the repair work was done that's been sitting idle for so many years, and you have such a landmark in your village. So you have my full support, and certainly, Angel, thank you for all that you do. I mean, we're very happy to see the increased presence of the park police, and even just seeing them around the island as they travel from one park to the other. You know, that provides a lot of comfort and support for our residents. So, I mean, I know your department is challenged. You don't have anywhere near the resources you used to. I mean, Parks and Rec used to be up there in terms of personnel and resources, but, you know, seeing you guys step up with what you have is impressive as well. And I think this particular legislation is a mutual benefit. It relieves you of an additional burden, and certainly, even though I know it's going to be more work for Mayor Chargaloff, I know it's going to be in good hands. So I have no questions. You have my full support on this bill. Thank you for coming down. And certainly, Mayor Chargaloff, I know I have my mayor in Chalampago, but I have to tell you, you have done exceptional. I mean, if we could multiply you 18 more times, think of where Guam would be, because it's one thing to do a job, and I know it's a lot of work, but to be passionate about what you do, to have really the care that you put into what you do, that's extra special. So I wish you could be mayor of Guam, but at least know we're very impressed. We're very impressed with what you've been able to do with your village of Inalahan. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have no further comment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam. Do you have anything further before we close? Oh, one more. Sorry. Senator Roy, you're next.
Hofde, obviously, you know, Mayor, you have my full support. My last name is definitely from the South, rooted and deep down South, so you have my full support. Whatever you need, my office stands ready to support you and the people of Inalahan, and most definitely from the South. You know, I don't have any questions. I think my good colleagues of the esteemed body already vetted all the issues, and I think we just need to get the map, right? I'll help you out with that, bro. We'll get this bill done, and we should have it on the session floor once committee report is done. Okay? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Me too. I wanted to talk story about that story with me and my wife, with Mayor Chargaloff, but we'll save that for another day. So somebody came in to buy something from our store because they really cared for the mayor. And so my wife says, "Who are you buying it for?" He goes, "Oh, for the mayor in INALOHAN." And my wife says, "Oh my gosh, that's our favorite mayor. He's a really good mayor. He's the only one doing his job." Then my wife says, "Sir, what is your name?" And I'll write it on the receipt. So it's Mayor Paco. So, you know, we always have to be mindful of who comes to visit us. But, you know, my wife is still new to this place, but it was a wonderful story, and I wanted to share with you just for a little humor. But, sir, you are the embodiment of actions speak louder than words. You've performed honorably over the years. I remember when I first met you, you know, but you've really done such a wonderful job at in your village, and I applaud you and I commend you for that. Very, 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 very wonderful for all the world to see, not only for our island, but for everybody who comes to visit us. And I guess you have all our support, and we're going to work together to try to get this bill out into the floor and see it through. Thank you. If you have nothing further.
I just wanted to mention one thing. Since you brought up his name, Mayor Paco is also another mayor that is wonderful. He's done good things for MTM. And the fact that he's not challenged by somebody else in an election speaks very, very highly of what kind of person and what kind of work he does for his village. And the same thing with Mayor Tony. I also want to say that even without this bill being enacted, Mayor Tony Chargaloff and his Municipal Planning Council have been doing work and committed to the Inalahan pool ever since. And so we are also very grateful for all that he has done, and I'm sure with this we'll continue to do. But like I said, even without this bill, he has been doing it. So kudos to him and the people of Inalahan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and I wanted to also mentioned about Mayor Paco. I promised him that I was going to take my wife to stroll in his village more often so she can see what wonderful things he's doing as well. But with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude this public hearing on Bill number 180-37 Core. And we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Good morning. We will move on to the next public hearing for Bill number 168-37 Core, sponsored by myself, Dwayne T.D. Nicolas, an act to add a new subsection 70117-.1 to Chapter 70, Division 3, Title 11, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation, DRT, to issue conditional business license. With that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for attending the hearing. If there's, we got a panel, please join us up front. Mr. Matthew Baza from GITA. Neat Munya from GAR, please come up. John Duenas and Liz Duenas, please come up and join us. For the record, please state your name and speak directly into the mic. Thank you.
Hafiday, good morning, Senators, Senator Nicolas and the other senators present. My name is Matthew Baza. I am the Assistant Manager for Business and Economic Development at the Guam Economic Development Authority. Melanie Mendiola, our CEO, wanted to be here today, but there was a conflict in the schedule, so I'm here to read her testimony. First and foremost, Senator, I want to apologize. The testimony was inadvertently made out to the committee that the bill was referred to. We weren't aware that you as the prime sponsor were holding the bill, but we will amend that and submit it officially for you to incorporate in the committee report.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. The Hafiday Senators, and thank you for allowing comment on Bill 168. The Guam Economic Development Authority supports the intent of the bill to encourage commerce and entrepreneurship, the ability for businesses of all types to more efficiently open their doors and engage in commerce creates jobs and opportunities for our people. However, there are a few realities of the business licensing and permitting process that we would like to highlight as the bill moves forward through the legislative process. Bill 168 states that a business owner may apply for a conditional business license if he or she has failed to meet all requirements for a business license. GITA wholeheartedly understands that the business licensing and permitting process can at times be cumbersome. However, it is important to stress that many of the various permit and clearance requirements throughout the process are there to protect the health and safety of the people of Guam. Many GITA programs require applicants to have a valid business license. Based on our experience, it is rare for a business to be totally unable to obtain the requisite license or licenses. Furthermore, in those instances where obtaining a license has been more difficult, many of those instances are due to important public health and safety concerns. GITA does see the potential for Bill 168 to help certain types of businesses with minor business license deficiencies to thrive and grow. However, more complex businesses or businesses that may have a higher degree of impact on the environment or the general public may not be the most appropriate to receive the conditional business license Bill 168 proposes. On this matter, GITA, of course, defers to our regulatory sister agencies as to how the bill may impact their role in the business licensing and permitting process. Again, GITA wholeheartedly supports the intent of this bill and appreciates any effort to encourage more swift participation in our economy. Further discourse and work on Bill 168 may lead to opportunities for certain types of businesses to more efficiently engage in commerce and grow our economy. Thank you for your time and attention on this testimony. If you have any questions, of course, you can contact Mel Mendiola, the CEO at GITA, and of course, I'll be here for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Neat Munya, please.
Buenas and Hafade. My name is Neat Munya. I'm with the Guam Association of Realtors, and I'm here with my colleagues Liz and John. Anyway, so let me go ahead and read what we have, and then any questions can be presented to John. Okay. So the Guam Association of Realtors, the Guam Association of Realtors supports the intent of Bill 168, TAC 37. We agree with the bill's preamble that the process of obtaining a business license for certain businesses is at times tedious, restrictive, protracted, and a deterrence to potential applicants because of the need to obtain clearances from several government agencies. One type of business, for example, is that required for individual private property owners to lease their residential units. Other businesses could also benefit from the issuance of a conditional business license, such that certain businesses can operate and generate income, and the government can, can gain revenue after meeting basic minimum requirements, licensing requirements, pending the completion of the auxiliary clearances for the actual license. In fact, our association brought the conditional business license concept to Senator Nicolas's attention some months ago in hopes that necessary legislation could be crafted and introduced for debate and action. Thank you, Senator, for introducing this bill. While we support the concept, the association recognizes the conditional business license process should not apply to all businesses, and that only certain types of businesses may qualify. This determination should be made by the Director of Revenue and Taxation based upon the analysis and recommendations of the DRT License Division and with the consent of the License Board. We are submitting attached alternative recommendations to Senator Nicolas so that this bill can be further studied and amended so that the process can be made sound, proper, and beneficial to both the applicant and the government. The Guam Association of Realtors believes that this bill has substantial merit and that its passage in sound form will be beneficial to our island economy. Thank you so much. And the attachments have been sent to your office, yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Dwayne, please.
Actually, that was the testimony. If you have any questions, we can try to address them.
Yes, sir. Okay, yeah. I forgot to do my opening about the bill, but this is something that I find very important because, I've applied for business licenses and many have also. And sometimes you get stuck at, maybe EPA or fire. I've experienced it too where, it took like a month to get a fire inspection. because, and then also the building inspector, says, oh no, this is not the way it's supposed to be, and literally I found out that he said no to us because it was a fire's concern, but fire went ahead and approved it. So, it can be tedious, and sometimes it can be punitive to people who just want to move this island forward. How we're able to spend and buy the things that we want, and the things that we need is literally on the backs of our business people. And I feel that, and I feel some of the concerns. And also, there are some people, some constituents that have come up to me and have told me that after several years of being in business, all of a sudden they get shut down. And so that's another area of my concern. But what I really want to do is, in all honesty, to try to get people back to work and maybe start businesses that can benefit our entire island. And that's where I stand on this. And I know the bill is imperfect. It's not all the time we have it all set in stone. So that's why we have these public hearings, so we can dialogue and we can address some of the concerns both for the government and for our businesses. But that's where I stand in this. I really want to get people back to work and starting businesses, and let's get this economy flourishing again. So that's where I stand on that. And I'd like to thank you for joining us, and giving your testimony. We'll go ahead and start with, for any questions, Senator Jesse Lujan. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panel, for being here this morning. I do as well support the intent of the bill. I have run the tedious task of permitting as well. And I tell you, sometimes at times there are certain agencies that was just sit on your form because the person that signed it is not there and on vacation, and nobody else can do that. But I likewise, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and I like the recommendations you made that, again, the amendments that you are offering, that the minimum requirements will be determined by the license division, because when you start with that, again, when they lump you on into this one-size-fits-all situation, a situation that has nothing to do with you, but because that's how we do it, it's applicable to you, which is really of little concern. But I like that. I support the intent of the bill, and if my colleagues would, again, move forward with some of the recommendations for the amendment of the bill, then it's got my support, because, again, the one stop is more than one stop. It's like a halt at times, but thank you again for bringing this forward, and we definitely have to be more of a business-friendly community, especially most now in our challenging times. We have to be more friendly than ever before, and again, sometimes when we've met the enemy, and the enemies ourselves. But thank you very much, panel, for that, and Mr. Chairman for introducing this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Senator Tello, madam.
Sujus Mase, Mr. Chair, and thank you, those who are here today. Just for the record, the bill was referred to Committee on Taxation and Environment, and the bill now is being heard in this committee because it's reached it has the ability to be heard after 120 days, so the author of testimony as well as the real estate industry coming here to testify. I think these are set in place for a reason. These rules, regulations, inspections are placed to protect our community and ensure that we feel safe going to restaurants, going to stores, and any other kind of business. And let alone, it also ensures that who's ever renting from an individual, that the landlord has done its due diligence to ensure that fire inspections are met, that public health is there to ensure that who's ever moving into these apartments or homes that are being rented out, that they have nothing to worry about as far as, they have their children and they feel secure, a little bit more secure in renting facilities out that's been vetted, through these regulatory agencies. So, and I am one that truly believes in growing our economy and finding it difficult as a business owner myself. I hold several business licenses. And it does get very difficult, but once you get through them, get the license, it's not very difficult to get renewed afterwards. So to continue on with it. So though I do support, the growth of our economy, but I also truly believe in the protection of our community comes to the forefront of anything, any kind of money that's going to be made. That's more important, environment and the health and safety of our people. So I look forward to not only hearing from Department of Revenue and Taxation, and also I look forward to fire, hearing from the fire department, because, Liz, we've come in situations where fire department has always been the bottleneck, right there, trying to get them to come out and inspect, and then having laws that contradict each other. Which one do we follow? Do we follow the public health, or do we follow what fire department is issuing out? So we are trying to correct those issues. And I think if there's anything to maintain that balance that's currently in law, to find out where those bottlenecks are, where we can address to make it more friendly on both sides, but never taking away the safety aspect of the reason why these inspections are needed in order to get a business license. So I appreciate also the proposed amendments, amendment number one and amendment number 2. I will thoroughly look over that as well. And again, I thank you for always coming here to the legislature and voicing your opinion. I wish we get more people like you guys who come here, because I tell you, we rely on the community, the voice of the people, and the businesses.
Well, Senator, I just want to say we do support the intent. It's not to, we are in agreement that safety is paramount. And then, of course, I'm sure we can work, there details could be worked out with the rev and tax. Mm-hmm. So we're not about bypassing the safety measures. We're all about spurring the economy. I mean, it's hard enough as it is right now. Businesses are suffering, but at least it's a start. It's something to start with and work with. Right now, to even get a business license, you go to one stop, but you don't just stop at one stop. You have to go to other agencies to get the proper clearances, and then you're subject to fire department schedule, you're subject to land management schedule, you're subject to other schedules, and it's, the public works has to inspect. So we're not trying to bypass the safety measures. We'd like to speed up the process somehow, but work together to come up with an easier method. Even, let's say you even got past the process. You cannot even get your business license printed at one stop. You still have, even though there's someone there representing Rev and Tax, you still have to go up physically to Rev and Tax to get your license printed. So yes, there are things that we could work on to improve the system, whether it be through this bill or revising the current law. At least we're calling attention to it, period.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that, because it's definitely needed. And if anything, if you recall, at the beginning of this administration, I think Lieutenant Governor Tenorio had put a task force together with the gentleman from the Guam Trades Academy, what's his name, who actually spearheaded, do you remember his name, John?
Bert Johnson.
Bert Johnson, that's right. I attended a couple of those meetings because I was concerned about, how long it took for people to get business license. I even introduced legislation for the ARC when it comes to approving land, that these regulatory agencies were taking their too much time, and implemented a fine to those directors who did not provide their reports in a timely manner through the ARC. Of course, it passed by this body, but it was vetoed by the governor. So now there are steps that we are making currently as a legislature to try and speed up that process, try to adjust the way things are done. I mean, you're right. If you go to One Stop, it should be One Stop. It's called One Stop for a reason, not 3 stops or 4 stops. It's called One Stop, right? And, you know, I don't know what happened to that task force. You know, they met like 4 times. I attended 2, and nothing has come about. We're still in the same predicament as we were. Maybe this will probably jumpstart that task force again, or implement the recommendations by the task force, because there were people, all kinds of people sitting on that, from UOG that was sitting on there, you know, the average person, a business license person that was sitting on it. So I'm curious to find out where that task force is today and what it's implemented. And of course, speeding up the process is very important. Yeah, you're right, not bypassing, thank you for that, not bypassing the safety mechanism, just finding a way to speed things up a bit. So I look forward to, you know, all the other testimonies that come in, and I appreciate you again for being here. Thank you.
The fact that, you know, you have probably the bones here, maybe with some meat on it, and we need to move forward, but certainly I think it has brought to the attention the fact that this is something that's sorely needed in terms of reform when it comes to licensure issue. I want to once again thank the Guam Association of Realtor for always being active and proactive in terms of you know, working for legislation that benefits all of the community, not just things that they do. But I want to hone in on and see, John, because I know that this has been under development for several years now, and use just kind of a perfect example, and maybe this is how it will spur Reverend Tax and others, and maybe, Gita, you can take this back as your small business development group. In particular, and especially now with many people leaving and relocating off island, we see a lot of homes that are currently for sale that can also be on the rental market. If you're talking about military rental or even GURA, you have very, very strict inspections that are required in order to be able to allow, and they take into consideration all of the safety and other aspects associated with that. So, and I can tell you with personal experience, I want to see if this is the experience of some of your clients as well, from Guam Association of Realtors. It is the government that generally ends up holding up not only the fact of the One Stop, but the inspection. And most of the time, realtors have already gone in and told these individuals and given these individuals, hey, here's what you're going to be going through when you're going to be inspected to finally have occupancy based on approval from either Navy or from GURA or what have you, regulatory agency that's going to be remitting, you know, this contractual agreement in terms of the price. And so it's already built in, but a lot of times you have a homeowner standing outside waiting for a pickup truck to come by and walk around the perimeter and do all the safety checks. But that sometimes can be 30, 45, 60 days. So is this kind of what's envisioned here is reform in terms of that area?
Well, one of the things we thought about is if let's say an inspection was done and we're trying to get the conditional clearance, and the inspection would take 30 days or 60 days. The conditional approval could be for a window of time, and if the property owner did not comply, then that's taken from them. So there's got to be safety catches put in place, a window of time to complete minor repairs or whatever is needed. I mean, even when we do our military inspections, they require certain things to be done, or they fail the inspection, and then they have to come back. They'll say you have this time to correct it, and if they come back again and it's not done, it fails. So again, the safety measures should be put in place. And I'm sure the government entities would agree with that as well.
John, any comments?
Well, the bill is currently written. It's kind of wide open. It needs controls. It needs guardrails. I believe that we do need to get testimony from revenue and tax. I believe there's certain businesses out there that kind of fit this conditional business license process. I think part of it would be revenue and tax license division to identify what those businesses are, establish minimum requirements that have to be met before a conditional license is issued. There are ancillary requirements, clearances that need to be obtained. But perhaps once you get the license, you're allowed to at least set up your business. And then, but perhaps not open to the public, or not sign a lease, or, but at least you have a license and you get things going such that by the time inspections are made or ancillary clearances are handled, you're ready to go. I think the question is, why does it take so long to get these things inspected? Why does fire department take that long? Sometimes we forget who's serving who. I mean, the government exists to serve the community rather than the community existing to serve the government. And I see a lot of legislation out there that kind of flips that. The government, you have to go to the government and genuflect and do all kinds of things to get approval. I understand that approvals have conditions, but I don't know, I think it's just in many cases an attitude. What I always thought, building permit processing, other kind of process type systems really require standards of performance. We don't have that in our government. If let's say the Department of Public Works says if your application is good, we will get this building permit out within 45 days, and that's it. And then you convey that to your staff, and everybody's kind of pointing in the same direction. We don't have that. It could take only one person, one reviewer in government to stop everything cold. Or, by the way, and I've studied this because I'm in the industry that looks at these things. If one person in, let's say, a review agency, let's say Guam EPA, this is an example. If one person is kind of good at what he does, kind of the work kind of gravitates to him, and then all of a sudden the contractors out there figure out that this is the guy I need to talk to, so they get him at a party, and obviously many businesses don't fall under that category. Let's say, for example, you want to be a physical therapist and you want to set up an office. Well, what are the minimum requirements? Has to be, you have to have the credentials to be a physical therapist. So there are minimum requirements, and I'm really looking at the license division, the division that actually looks at the license applications to come up with those minimum requirements, and to, in fact, maybe come up with a suggestion on which businesses can qualify for this. And then maybe in this legislation, put in a AAA process, set of regulations that give you that structure to be able to apply for a conditional business license. I mean, Senator, it needs a lot of work. The intent is terrific. Gita testified that there are a lot of businesses there that could benefit. We want to be business friendly. That's a good start, but I think it takes maybe collaboration with regulatory agencies and with Gita and others to be able to get this bill to a sound form. And that's what we said. If it's in sound form, yeah, it ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you. And I wanted to elicit that response because I'm going to make a recommendation to the chairman in my closing comments. I think now that the public hearing's been had and now the public will get an idea of what's being launched here in terms of, as I mentioned, the skeleton with perhaps some tendons, and now we'll start putting some meat and some muscle on it. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that you write to the committee after the findings of this bill and request a roundtable, particularly with Revenue and Taxation, GITA, and all of the relevant regulatory agencies to come in, and so that we can vet this right now. Because I want to reiterate, I think one thing that would be on the table, and I know Chris Felix is the one who's really brought this to the forefront, is the fact that you have so many of these rentals or capability for rentals going forward, whether it's going to be new construction coming online or current residences that exist that will be converting, the fact is they have rigorous requirements to meet in order to sign lease agreements. So I can tell you in my personal experience, serious enough, I had a pre-inspection with a realtor that I knew well to go through the place, and that pre-inspection was way more rigorous than I was taking care of a property for a family member, was way more rigorous than my government official showed up, to sign off. I'm not asking for, them to come down harder, don't get me wrong, but the only thing really that was the difference was a backflow preventer on a hose bib outside. But other than that, believe me, the realtor that not only did the white glove, but, showed me everything to include a utility faceplate for a plug-in that had one chip on the corner of the plastic and said, you will fail. You run to the store, it's $2.99, come back, try to find an almond one that will match everything else, and change that, because you will fail. That's, even though that's nothing to do with electrical, but the fact is it's not a wire, it's not, it's not on the panel, but it must be completely intact with no chips, scratches, cracks, dings, whatever else it is. You will fail on the electrical portion of that inspection. So I'm just saying that, Mr. Chairman, I think that you've lit the fuse. And then let's get everybody, I think, in, and I think that hopefully a favorable response to your letter to the committee saying, let's convene a round table to flesh out this bill, because I'm sure everyone's going to have the same concerns, Mr. Chairman, is that great intent. We need to break it down to, the levels. But I think also this will, put on notice that we're asking our government to serve us better. And so I think you'll accomplish a lot with that, Mr. Chairman. Just a recommendation as your Vice Chair. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, my Vice Chair. Thank you, Senator Dwayne. I remember applying for a credit card machine, and it took like 2 weeks. But one of the requirements was they needed a business license. So, that's one of the ways where, this might benefit. And I remember, this kind of wide open, but we can narrow it down and fine tune it and, perhaps make it better. Senator Brown, Madam?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I certainly, again, I like other colleagues, appreciate the intent of this bill. But, I think it goes back to the core issue of the challenges we face in dealing with the government, even those of us in government. Anytime I have to deal with the government of Guam related to something, I'm always hopeful, but then it becomes a challenge. Last year, I had to get a crash report. It took 66 days for me to get. Fortunately, I was not the responsible party for the accident, but it took 66 days, and the fact that an officer, one of two that were there, was on guard duty. So, when I get that type of explanation, I've gone my 4th time up to the police precinct in Sinahania, my eyes are glazing over. I remember, too, when my home was first built, and I was the oversight chair for GPA, it took weeks to get the power hookup, and I had to have an original, document with a signature of the inspector from DPW, and I asked why. I could go put up a 2x4, and GPA will give me a conditional hookup. And I can attach an extension cord to a house that we've seen, and GP will hook it up. But you won't hook up my house that's been inspected, that's been built by a certified contractor. And I'm your oversight chair. Okay, great. So I appreciate the challenges that we all have to deal with. Like I said, even in government, it is frustrating. And that's the issue that needs to be addressed, is how do we look at the efficiencies that are needed, or timelines for things that really should not require, if it's not a rigorous inspection, if it's something that is going through the process, why does it take so long? And then getting in contact and follow up and follow through. I mean, eventually, I had to call the chief of police, even though I always had the number. I said, okay, I'm going to go through the process. But it just shows you the challenges we have, because the objective of service is not the priority. And because we are so we're not focused on the mission is not the objective, we end up with situations where employees, whatever. And I think that's not what we would like to see, but until we hold people accountable for performance, this is what we're going to continue to see, and it's frustrating. At the other end, I have reservations also has been raised with regards to, the requirements. I mean, like, I don't want to give a conditional permit to a restaurant and they're not, don't have the proper safety, public health inspections and things of that nature. Even though public health, we don't know if they've been inspecting a restaurant lately. But I think it has to be something very specific that doesn't have these adverse effects, because we're also opening ourselves up to liability. I mean, what if something goes wrong and something wasn't properly addressed or inspected? To what degree does that open the government up to liability of being sued as well? I mean, those are other realities we need to take into consideration. So I'm open to looking at the language. I have reservations about some of these critical areas where permitting is needed. I mean, I don't want clearing and grading without review. Things like that I would have reservations about, Mr. Chair. But if there's revised language that is specific to something that is really not onerous, that is going to have adverse effect, then, I'd be open to that. But I think the real crux of the issue that most politicians will not deal with, they're not going to want to deal with efficiencies in government, because to do that means you have to ensure that employees are performing. And there are many employees in government of Guam that are doing their job, and there are many that are not. Sometimes they're in very critical positions where we actually need them to perform. And until we have that, until we have accountability in that, because everything is set up to ensure mediocrity in government, and until the public decides that they want something else, you're going to get the coddling that goes on and the lack of performance that we continue to see. So I don't have any questions. I appreciate your time in articulating the benefits, but then also the reservations you have with regards to legislation that's been proposed. But I think we empathize and understand where the sponsor is coming from with this bill, but that's a bigger mountain to climb, and I don't know who's ready to climb that mountain. With that, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
So Senator, I agree with you. I agree with your observations. In private industry, where if you don't make any money, you can't continue your business. My partner, Dan Swavely, many years ago, that used to be Dwayne and Swavely, we had the saying that in the private sector, before you can actually do anything or succeed as a business, you have to submit an invoice. Before you submit an invoice for services, you have to have delivered the services. But in government, this is the saying in government, the process is the product. In fact, that is so evident when you see agencies meet every day. They think they're doing something, but there's no product. So if today's meeting ends at 5, you go home and then you come back the next day and continue that meeting, they consider that work. Whereas in the private sector, you don't consider it really work until you get paid. So,
yeah. But I have to tell you, our people settle for it because the leadership doesn't demand it, and the leadership does not change the laws that they need to change to hold people accountable. We're very bleeding heart to the extent that we're harming our people because we're so accommodating.
I agree,
and the performance that should be there. I mean, sometimes you think it's the superiors, the supervisors that should be, but then sometimes the supervisors are colluding with the employees. We've seen it. We know it happens.
So that's why I think top down, the government really ought to be setting standards of performance for various services they deliver and put time limits on that.
But
so
then people would have to perform.
Exactly, and if they don't perform...
And nobody wants to offend anybody, right? To the point that we're almost in paralysis. And I think until we start be willing to, or the public demands it and votes people out of office that are doing all this coddling, because right now the employee is the priority. I mean, look at what happens at civil service. My eyes glazed over many times. I mean, come on.
It should be top down. Start from the top.
We have to stop listening to the promises and look at delivery. And until that happens, we get what we get. And it's unfortunate because we all, your side of the aisle, like I said, I'm a government in all these years. And even I dread. If things actually work, I'm grateful. But we end up having to deal with the same situation. And it's very frustrating because you just want to get things done and move on to the next challenge because there's always something else we have to take care of. But that's the bigger question. And I think until the public decides they're fed up enough, and they make the changes that are needed from the top down, because we have, we don't have easy interviews to get in this position. We have to go out to the entire public to get elected. But the rest of the government is so insulated It's so insulated from the people that it's supposed to serve that it doesn't have to perform and nothing happens to it from not performing. And that's where the frustration is. And that's not going to change until the public decides we've had enough of this or something drastic happens before they demand performance. And if you don't do it, goodbye. So anyway, I appreciate your input. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam. When I was a young customs officer, I was watching one of the airplanes pull away. And as they pulled away and they straightened up and they were about to head down the runway, you see the Japanese airline ground crew go out to see the airplane take off. And as the plane drove away, they would all be waving because they care. You care for your job. You take pride in your job. I saw that with the Japanese airplanes. They come in clean. They leave clean. The Japanese boats, when they come in, the tuna boats, they're real immaculate. You can tell the difference in the way they took care of their equipment. And it was just wonderful because, you see that they care. They care for their job. And they act honorably. If we can somehow instill that in our workforce to come in early, leave late, act honorably, wave when the customer leaves, it would probably be a much nicer department. I tried to follow that when I was working in the government in another life. But I understand what what you mean. Customer service is very important, and the way our government treats our community, it's very important. So I do feel you, and I do understand that this bill needs a little bit more work, and I got some word and comments from my colleagues. Maybe we do a round table and revisit and revise until it becomes a much more palatable bill for everybody. But with that being said, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this hearing. If there is no more testimony here today, we would adjourn the portion of this public hearing, and the time is 10:42. Please note that all also continue to receive testimony via mail room at the Guam Legislature or through email at Senator Nicolas at guamlegislature.org. Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. Adios.